So initially we're starting at row 0. I know name ID says 1, but this is row 0. Remember, we count from 0. Then this is row 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and so on. So we're starting from 0, and that's exactly why we do this -1, because at the moment page is going to equal 1, or it might equal 2, but we want to say page -1 because we always want to be 1 back from ourselves for the purpose of starting at counting at 0. And then we're multiplying that by per page. That's pretty self-explanatory. For example, if the user specified that they didn't specify anything and we were starting on page 1, we're going to say page -1, so that is going to be, we're starting at 0, and 0 times 6 is 0 in this case. So we're starting from record 0 and we're limiting to per page. So we will first of all go from 0 to 6. Then if the user specifies the page to be 2, then we're saying page -1, so that's 2 minus 1 is 1, times per page is 6. So we're then starting at record 6, and we are continuing on from there. Okay, so hopefully that makes sense. It's just a bit of mathematical logic, quite straightforward, but if you're not sure, you'll probably work it out a bit later on. So what we need to do now is we need to update our query, because obviously at the moment this query is selecting all results, and that's not what we want. Let's just go ahead and test out our page to see if we have any errors, which I don't think we should have. No. Okay, so we're going to append onto the end of this query the limit keyword, and the limit keyword takes 2 parameters, if you like. It's not I don't think it's a function, but yeah, it takes 2 parameters, and the first one is the start. So we're saying, for example, if we wanted to show records 0 to 6, we could just type a 0 and a 6 in there. Okay, and if we go over to our browser, you can see that that just limits it to the first 6 records. What we could then do is say 6 to let's say 12, and refresh. Oh no! Oh, sorry. Sorry. The last parameter here is the amount that you want to display. So if we start if we start at row 6 and we want to show 6 results, that's basically how that works. And in that case, we're going to get the next 6 results, and then so on and so forth. So this could then become 12, and we want to show 6, which is them, and then we want to go and increment that again by 6 because we're saying per page 6, and that will be 18, and we want to show 6. However, that's just going to show 2 because it's the last 2 in our table. So we can scrap these for now because we're not defining these ourselves. We have these dynamic variables that we've created that are going to update that for us. Well, per page isn't dynamic, but you know what I mean. So start per page. Remember, this is how many results that you want to display after the start, and we've already talked about calculating the start, so that's pretty straightforward. So now what we can do is refresh. You'll see that we've automatically come to page 1. Remember, this automatically takes us to page 1 if we don't have a page get variable set in our browser. Now I can manually do this now. I can say page equals 1. I can then change it to page equals 2, page equals 3, or I can go page equals 4, and that's the last 2 results. So you can see that now through this URL at the top, we're actually defining the page number that we want. That's being calculated here, dividing it per page, and we're taking the page here and we're creating a start from it. Okay, so now what we want to do is obviously display page numbers underneath here, so we can click each page that we have. So if we come underneath here, or wherever you want to display your pages, we're going to need to first of all create a check, and that is obviously in an if statement we have to meet a condition, and this is pages is greater than or equal to 1. Okay, so if pages is greater than or equal to 1, the reason being is that if we only have one page, there's no need to display links to go onto page 2 or 3. If we only had, say, 4 records and we're showing a maximum of 6 per page, we wouldn't need a page 2. So this essentially just checks if we have more than one or equal to one page. Okay, so now we need to create a for loop. If you're not familiar with for loops, this is going to be a bit complicated and I'm not going to explain too much, but have a look at those if you haven't already come across them. So we're going to say for x equals 1, this is essentially just a counter, this x variable. We're counting up so we can display the page as x. Hopefully that makes sense. We've got x, the condition here is while x is smaller than or equal to pages. So we've got the amount of pages here that we've already defined, so we want x to be smaller than or equal to pages in this condition, and then we're just going to increment x. This is standard practice of a for loop. So what I'm just going to do here is echo out x, and then I'm just going to append on a space just so we can see what happens. Let's go ahead and refresh, and you can see that we've got 1 to 4. So because we calculated this 4 earlier, we created a pages query here that got the result from the amount of records divided by 6. We've already essentially found out how many pages that there are. However, we need to add links to this. So let's just get rid of that, and now let's say echo and create a link. Inside of here is going to be the x variable, because this is obviously 1, 2, 3 and 4, and then in here we want to say page equals, and remember we were typing this in manually earlier, but now we can define it as x. So I'm just concatenating on this string and using full stops here, just in case you didn't know. So we start this link here, we then say the page equals x, which is going to be 1, 2, 3 and 4, and then we say we end that part of the link, and then we display the page number as well. And I'm going to put a space after that just there, so the page numbers are nicely evenly spaced out. Okay, let's refresh. Now we have links. If I hover over this, if you look at the bottom of my browser, you can see that we've got the full URL, and then we've got index.php page equals 1. We've got, now if we move over to this, we've got page equals 2, page equals 3 and page equals 4. So now we can safely assume we can click on these, and the functionality that we were doing ourselves up here earlier is now in the form of links. So let's click on page 2, page 3 and page 4. So that's pretty straightforward. We've easily created pagination from records in a database. Now there's one more thing I'm going to cover. If you're interested in this, by all means watch a lot, carry on watching. Otherwise it's not really entirely necessary. It's just making the currently selected page bold. Now before I start that, we do actually have one problem, and the problem is that the user can always define the page up here themselves. So we can say 2 and 3 and 4 and so on. However, what happens if the user was to type page equals 5? You can see that we're left with these numbers here when we might not actually want them. We might want to in fact display, sorry, that page was not found, or incorrect page, or something like that. So for now I'm going to just add in an extra check. So I'm going to say, as well as this check here, pages is greater than or equal to 1. Remember, if our pages are greater than or equal to 1, we can display our links. I'm also going to say if page is less than or equal to pages. And what this is doing is checking the user defined page and saying, is it less than the total overall pages? And if it is less than the total overall pages, i.e. in this case, is it 1, 2, 3 or 4, then we can display our links. If it's 5, 6, 7 and so on, we don't want to display the links. So that's another bit of basic logic. Let's press enter on that, and you can see that they've disappeared. However, if we go back to page 4, you can see that our links show back up and we continue to use them. So that's just a bit, I mean, it will still work without this, but I just like to make it look nice. And if the user was trying to, insert their own values into the URL, we can, make it look a bit nicer. Okay, so the next thing, like I mentioned before, we're going to make the links that are already clicked, so the page number that we're currently viewing, bold. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, let's just cut that for now so we can paste it in a bit later. I am going to create, well, we won't do an if statement, but we'll say echo and a condition in here. The condition is going to be, is x equal to page. Now if x, which is the loop through from 1 to 4 in our case, because we have 4 pages, if x is equal to the current page that's defined up here, we want to make that individual number bold. So for example, at the moment page equals 3, in our loop this value here is equal to x, so therefore we can make it bold. So I'm going to say echo, if x is equal to page, we can then say, let's paste that back in. We don't need the echo here because we're already defining it before this check. And if x is equals to page, we can put some strong tags around that to highlight it. However, otherwise, we want to just, again, we can take this. In fact, we can just take this part of the link, and we can put that in there. So essentially what we're doing is we're saying, is x equal to page, so are we on the current page? If we are on the current page, we're going to wrap strong tags around our link, remember the space there, and then otherwise we are just going to display the link plain without any strong tags at all. So let's go ahead and preview that, and then we'll be at the end of the tutorial. Oh, I forgot to include the space there, make it look messy. Okay, so you can see we're already on page 3, and you can see that 3 has been highlighted bold, it's been wrapped around with strong tags. If I was to click on 1, you can see that now that's bold, 2, now that's bold, 3 we've already seen, and 4. So that's easy pagination in PHP. You can obviously use this with a variety of different data that you're retrieving from your database. Just follow the tutorial, wrap it around the data you're already displaying, and you shouldn't have any problems at all.